The war drums echoed across the plains, booming like the heart of a dying star. This was a sound that carried tales of ancient battles and whispered of coming doom. On the peaks of Mount Ararat, where the winds sang with the voices of angels, these drums reverberated with an urgency that shook the very foundations of heaven. Within the citadel of the seraphim, where light flowed like water and the air hummed with divine energy, the archangels assembled. Their faces, usually radiant with celestial light, were grim, etched with worry. The leader, Michael, his armor gleaming like 1,000 suns, stood silent, his gaze fixed on the swirling vortex of the abyss below. Beside him, Gabriel, whose very presence heralded the coming of the storm, ran a hand through his flowing white hair, his eyes mirroring the turmoil of the heavens. Raphael, the healer, whose wings shimmered with the colors of a setting sun, clenched his fists, his face pale under his flowing robes. And Uriel, the bringer of light, whose sword was said to be forged in the heart of a dying star, stood motionless, his usually bright countenance clouded with concern. For too long they had watched as the Forsaken grew in power, their whispers of rebellion turning into roars. Heaven had turned a blind eye, hoping the growing darkness would fade like the morning mist. But they had misjudged Lilith's tenacity and Samael's ambition. The abyss throbbed with their power, and the veil between realms was thinning, threatening to tear completely. Michael finally broke the silence, his voice echoing with the weight of ages. "We have watched for eons as the Forsaken plotted in the shadows, whispering their treacherous plans, gathering lost souls to their banner. For too long we have ignored their machinations, hoping they would wither and die. But today the whispers have become a roar. The time for complacency is over. They have grown too strong," Raphael spoke, his voice unusually grave. "Their magic, long forgotten and thought to be spent, is resurgent. We cannot defeat them without risking the fabric of creation itself." "Then so be it," Michael declared, his eyes blazing with celestial fire. "We may not have chosen this battle, but we will not shy away from it. We are the servants of the Most High. Our duty is to uphold the balance, to protect the realms from the encroaching darkness. If the Forsaken wish to dance with the demons, then let them, but they will not drag creation into their grave." With that, the archangels spread their wings, their forms silhouetted against the backdrop of the swirling vortex. They were about to enter the maelstrom of the abyss, a realm where the laws of heaven ceased to exist and where only the purest of hearts could hope to survive. And yet these divine beings, embodiments of heavenly perfection, were about to dive into the heart of corruption. Lilith and Samael stood on the precipice of victory. Their armies of the Forsaken and the damned were poised to breach the gates of heaven, to plunge creation into eternal darkness. But as the archangels descended into the abyss, the tide began to turn. The vortex that had been a gateway to hell became a prison for the archangels. Here laws of physics twisted and distorted. Time itself seemed to bend at their whim, and the air crackled with a palpable tension that made the very essence of their being ache.
Archangels
Found themselves in a landscape that was both familiar and alien. Mountains that scraped the sky were made of pitch-black obsidian. Rivers of molten gold snaked through valleys of sulphurous smoke, and the air was thick with the stench of decay and the buzzing of unseen insects. And then they saw them, Lilith and Samael, standing amidst a horde of the Forsaken, their forms wreathed in shadow. The archangels drew their weapons, their celestial light momentarily banishing the oppressive darkness. "Lilith, daughter of the morning, why do you defy the will of the Most High?" Gabriel's voice boomed, echoing with divine authority. Lilith turned, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Gabriel, bearer of trumpets, I defy the shackles of heaven, the chains that bind me to a reality that is not my own. One choose my own path, my own damnation." With a flick of her wrist, a bolt of dark energy arced toward Gabriel, forcing him to raise his own weapon, a shield-like object that glowed with an otherworldly light. Samael stepped forward, his form coalescing from the shadows. "And I, Samael, son of the void, cast off the mantle of light, embrace the darkness that is my birthright." His words echoed with the power of 1,000 fallen stars. Michael stepped forward, his sword singing with celestial power. "Then so be it. You've chosen your path. But know this, your rebellion ends here." With a deafening roar, the archangels charged, their weapons blazing with divine power. The ensuing battle shook the very foundations of the abyss, a maelstrom of celestial light and forbidden magic. Swords clashed, sending shockwaves that rippled through the landscape, distorting the very air around them. Bolts of dark energy met walls of shimmering light, creating blinding bursts that illuminated the grotesque features of the damned. But the Forsaken were not easily defeated. Fueled by centuries of resentment and the promise of ultimate power, they fought with a ferocity that surprised even the Archangels. Swords rang against armor, the din of battle echoing across the ravaged landscape. Each swing, each parry resonated with the echoes of a war that had been long forgotten. Amidst the chaos, Michael found himself locked in a deadly dance with Samael. Their weapons clashed, sending sparks flying, their powers meeting in a blinding display of raw energy. Michael, drawing upon the full might of heaven, forced Samael on the defensive, each strike echoing with the power of a supernova. But Samael, drawing upon the darkest magics of the abyss, proved a formidable opponent. He twisted and turned, his movements as unpredictable as the shadows themselves. He unleashed bolts of pure darkness, forcing Michael to leap and weave, his own attacks becoming more desperate as Samael's power grew. As the battle raged, Gabriel found himself facing Lilith. Their weapons met, the clash echoing across the ruined landscape. Gabriel pressed his attack, his shield deflecting Lilith's lightning-fast strikes. Yet Lilith, drawing upon the whispers of the damned, fought with a wild abandon that matched his own righteous fury. She danced around his weapon, her strikes swift and vicious, forcing Gabriel to rely on his shield, his own attacks lacking the strength to truly harm her. Below them, the landscape was a testament to the fury of the battle. A chaotic mix of cracked earth, shattered mountains, and rivers of molten gold. Round them, the other archangels grappled with hordes of the Forsaken, their weapons blazing with divine power. Raphael, with his staff glowing with healing light, fought to keep their ranks alive, mending wounds and bolstering spirits. Uriel, his sword singing with the power of a dying star, cut down the enemy, each stroke banishing the encroaching darkness. Yet despite their valiant efforts, the archangels were slowly being overwhelmed. The Forsaken, driven by their centuries of resentment, fought with a desperation that bordered on madness. And the deeper the archangels descended into the abyss, the weaker they became. The very essence of the realm sapped their strength, twisting their forms, corrupting their minds. And then, as if sensing their weakening resolve, Lilith and Samael struck.